When you hear the phrase, God chose you to hear this, it's not a coincidence. It's a statement loaded with responsibility and meaning. Life isn't a series of random accidents. It's a pattern, sometimes chaotic, sometimes mysterious, but always meaningful when you look closely enough. There are moments in time when a message, an idea, or even a single sentence arrives at the exact second you're ready to receive it. That's what this moment is. You're not here by mistake. You're here because something deep inside you, perhaps something you've ignored or silenced, has been preparing for this. You see, divine timing doesn't operate on our schedules or conveniences. It moves according to alignment, when the state of your inner life meets the readiness of your soul. And when that alignment happens, truth appears, not as a whisper, but as a jolt. You don't get to choose when you're called. You only get to choose how you'll respond when the call comes. Before 24 October, something significant is aligning in your life. Maybe it's a season of revelation, or maybe it's a breaking point that will finally force you to see what's been hidden in plain sight. Either way, this isn't random. This is appointment, not accident. So many people wander through existence believing they are spectators in their own story, waiting for signs, waiting for permission, waiting for someone else to take responsibility for their path. But when God chooses you to hear a message like this, He's cutting through that passivity. He's reminding you that your story still matters, that your choices carry weight, and that you are being invited to wake up before time passes you by. Divine timing isn't about convenience, it's about readiness. It means the circumstances of your life, no matter how chaotic or painful they appear, have conspired to bring you to this precise point, right here, right now. And that realization should shake you. Because once you understand that nothing is accidental, you can no longer live as if your decisions don't matter. You can't retreat into indifference. The message you're hearing is a signal to rise, to re-enter your own life with eyes open and spirit alert. The world will keep you distracted with noise, comfort, and endless scrolling. It will convince you that urgency is unnecessary, that everything can wait. But the truth is, divine moments are time sensitive. They come with an expiration date. And that's why this moment matters before 24 October. Because something in your life is about to shift, but it requires your awareness, your participation, your courage. You might feel unqualified, too flawed, or too late to be chosen. But that's the illusion that keeps most people asleep. God doesn't call the perfect, He calls the willing. He doesn't wait for you to clean up your life before He speaks. He speaks to awaken you so you can begin to clean up your life. Maybe this message is arriving at a time when you've been questioning everything, your purpose, your direction, even your faith. That's not a coincidence either. It's preparation. The tension you feel is evidence that something greater is trying to emerge from within you. And if you ignore it, you risk missing the window that's been designed specifically for your transformation. But if you listen, really listen, you begin to see that divine timing isn't mystical, it's moral. It's the moment when you are given the opportunity to do the right thing, to take responsibility, to align your life with truth rather than comfort. You don't have forever to act on this awareness. The window closes when you choose indifference. But for now, it's open, and you've been chosen to hear that it is. So understand this, being chosen doesn't make you special, it makes you accountable. You are being trusted with awareness, with clarity, with timing. The question is, what will you do with it before the 24th arrives? There comes a moment in every person's life when the familiar rhythm of routine begins to feel hollow, when comfort starts sounding suspiciously like decay. You move through your days repeating the same actions, thinking the same thoughts, and convincing yourself that this is what stability looks like. But deep inside, something starts to stir, a quiet unease, a restlessness that refuses to be silenced. That's not anxiety. That's your soul trying to wake you up. And that's what this message is about. You are being called to wake up before it's too late, to shake yourself out of the trance of distraction and remember that you were not created merely to exist. Most people drift through life half asleep. They mistake movement for progress, noise for meaning, pleasure for peace. They scroll endlessly, consume endlessly, work endlessly, and yet remain spiritually vacant. And then, something like this message crosses their path. A few seconds that pierce through the fog. It's not coincidence, it's mercy. Because to be awake is not easy. Awareness is painful. It strips away excuses. It forces you to see how you've been avoiding the truth about who you are and what you've allowed your life to become. But if you can bear that pain, it becomes the foundation for transformation. This call to wakefulness is not meant to flatter you. It's meant to shake you. God doesn't whisper in moments of silence just to comfort. Sometimes He interrupts, disrupts, and disturbs so you'll finally look up from the distractions that have stolen your attention. You're being told that before 24th October, you must choose: continue sleepwalking through the predictable safety of your old patterns, or awaken to a deeper, more demanding awareness of what your life could mean. Because the truth is, the longer you stay asleep, the more your potential rots inside you. And the world does not benefit from another person who chooses to live numb. Wakefulness isn't just spiritual, it's moral. It's the recognition that your choices, your words, and your habits ripple through the lives of others. When you wake up, you begin to see that you're not separate from the world's chaos. You're participating in it, whether you mean to or not. Every lie you tell yourself, every compromise you justify, contributes to that decay. So to wake up means to reclaim responsibility, to stop blaming the system, your past, or your pain, and start aligning your actions with truth. That's what being chosen really means. To become conscious of the fact that your life matters, and that pretending otherwise is an act of cowardice. The call to wake up isn't gentle because sleep is seductive. It comforts you with the illusion of safety while quietly killing your potential. And maybe that's why this message found you now. Something in your life has dulled your spirit, maybe disappointment, maybe fear, maybe the exhaustion of fighting battles no one else sees. But even in that exhaustion, there's a spark that refuses to die. That spark is your reminder that you still have a purpose to fulfill, and that divine timing has brought you here to hear this before your chance fades. If you ignore this call, the world will go on just fine, but you will not. You'll feel the slow corrosion of your own spirit, the ache of knowing you could have become something more, but chose to stay asleep. But if you answer it, if you dare to wake up, the very same world that once felt empty will begin to glow with meaning again. You'll start to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles, and purpose where you once saw pain. So when I say you are being called to wakefulness, I don't mean it as a metaphor. I mean it as a divine interruption. Something greater than you is knocking on the door of your awareness, asking, will you open your eyes now? Because the window won't stay open forever. Before 24th October, something in your life demands your attention, something sacred, urgent, and real. Wake up before it passes you by. Responsibility is one of the most misunderstood words in our culture. We hear it and immediately think of burden, pressure, or guilt. But what if responsibility is not punishment, but the highest form of privilege? What if being chosen by God means being trusted with weight? Weight that shapes you into something stronger, wiser, and more capable of carrying meaning. To be chosen is to be given responsibility. And that is not cruelty, that is grace. Because without responsibility, your life remains shallow, aimless, and unanchored. It's responsibility that gives structure to freedom, that transforms potential into purpose. When God calls you, He doesn't promise ease. He invites you to rise. He hands you a task that might seem impossible, and in doing so, He acknowledges that you are capable of more than you believe. People often pray for blessings, but blessings without responsibility are wasted. Every gift from God comes wrapped in duty, the call to grow, to serve, to sacrifice, to discipline yourself. That's how divine favor expresses itself. When you're chosen, you're not being given an escape from struggle. You're being trusted to transform struggle into strength. That's what separates those who rise from those who fall asleep again. Responsibility isn't a chain, it's a compass. It points you toward what matters most. The person who avoids responsibility might feel free for a moment, but soon they discover the emptiness of living without direction. And the one who accepts it, who bears the weight willingly, finds that meaning blooms where comfort once ruled. When you take responsibility for your life, you stop waiting for rescue. You become the kind of person through whom rescue flows. That's what divine partnership looks like. You act. God multiplies. You move forward, and the path appears beneath your feet. Think about it. Every story of redemption, every moment of transformation, begins when someone stops making excuses and takes responsibility for who they are and what they can become. You are not chosen because you are flawless. You are chosen because you have the capacity to confront your flaws and still move forward. That's what courage is, not the absence of fear, but the decision to carry fear alongside faith. The moment you say, I will take responsibility, heaven begins to align opportunities in your favor. The world itself bends toward those who accept their purpose seriously. Before 24th October, you are being invited to make that decision, to stop waiting for someone else, to fix what you have the power to change. Maybe you've been postponing a conversation, delaying a decision, or denying a truth that's been pressing on your conscience. That delay is costing you clarity. Responsibility is the doorway through which clarity enters. You can't see your path while you're avoiding the weight of walking it. But the moment you embrace responsibility, the fog begins to lift. You start to see who you're meant to be, not as an abstract idea, but as a real disciplined, intentional human being. The world doesn't need more people chasing comfort. It needs people carrying purpose. And purpose demands responsibility. It's not glamorous, it's often lonely. It tests your patience, your faith, and your endurance. But when you bear that weight, you become unshakable. You develop depth, character, and authority. You stop being tossed around by circumstance because you've built a foundation inside yourself that can hold. That's what God is doing when He chooses you. He's building someone who can withstand storms and still serve others. So if you feel the pressure right now, if you feel the weight of expectations or the tension of accountability, don't resent it. That's the evidence of divine trust. God wouldn't ask you to carry it if He didn't believe you could. The question isn't whether you're ready, it's whether you're willing. Will you bear the responsibility of your calling before 24th October? Because when you do, everything begins to align, not because life gets easier, but because you finally become strong enough to carry what you were always meant to. There comes a moment when the old version of you can no longer carry the new life that's waiting to emerge. You can feel it in the quiet tension between who you've been and who you're meant to become. It's not that the past was meaningless. It was necessary. It shaped you, tested you, and prepared you. But there's a point where holding on becomes heavier than letting go. That's what renewal is about. It's not a soft, sentimental idea. It's a radical act of courage. It means tearing away what no longer serves your spirit and stepping into a future that demands a higher version of you. Before 24th of October, that opportunity stands before you like an open door. The only question is whether you'll walk through it. Renewal begins with honesty. You can't transform what you refuse to face. The human mind is skilled at self-deception. It hides behind excuses, masks pain with pride, and builds walls to keep the truth at bay. But every wall you build to protect yourself eventually becomes a prison. Renewal starts when you stop lying to yourself. When you admit that the patterns, relationships, or attitudes you've been clinging to are not leading you toward growth, but dragging you into stagnation. God isn't asking you to destroy your past. He's asking you to release your attachment to it. The lessons can stay. The shame cannot. You see, guilt and resentment are spiritual toxins. They whisper that you're defined by what you've done or what was done to you. But you are not your past. You are your choices in the present. Renewal is choosing to believe that God's plan is still alive, even after all the detours and disappointments. It's realizing that every failure, every heartbreak, every delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The pain that once felt like the end of your story was actually the soil in which new purpose could grow. But that new purpose can only take root if you clear the ground, if you remove the weeds of bitterness, self-pity, and fear. And that's not easy. Renewal always demands sacrifice. You might have to let go of people who can't see your growth, habits that dull your spirit, or environments that keep you small. You might have to forgive someone who never apologized, or even harder, forgive yourself. But understand this freedom doesn't come from forgetting the past. It comes from no longer being controlled by it. You can acknowledge what happened without living under its shadow. You can bless the past for what it taught you and still decide it will not define your tomorrow. This is what the window before 24th October represents, a divine intersection between ending and beginning. A time to lay down the old identity, the one built on survival, fear, and self-doubt, and put on a new one built on truth, faith, and discipline. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about finally becoming yourself. The person God intended before the world told you who to be. Renewal is both a death and a birth. Something within you has to die, an old belief, a harmful attachment, a limiting fear for something greater to live. But you can't wait for perfect conditions. Renewal doesn't arrive when life feels calm. It arrives when the storm makes you realize you can't stay the same. The discomfort you feel right now is not a sign of failure, it's the labor pain of transformation. Don't numb it. Don't run from it. Move through it with faith. God never wastes pain. He uses it to refine you, to strip away what's false, and to prepare you for what's next. So take this message as your signal. Before the 24th, make peace with your past and make room for the new. The old story is ending not because you failed, but because you've outgrown it. The next chapter can't begin until you decide to close the last one. Renewal is not a reward, it's a response. It's saying yes to becoming who you were meant to be and no to staying who you no longer are. Faith on its own is a fragile thing. It can inspire you, yes, but if it never moves you to act, it fades into wishful thinking. Faith was never meant to be passive. It's meant to move mountains through your obedience, your courage, your discipline. Belief without action is like a seed that never touches soil. It might hold potential, but it will never bear fruit. That's why this moment matters. Before 24th October, you are being called to bring your faith out of abstraction and into motion, to align what you say you believe with what you actually do. Because it's not enough to hope for change, you must participate in it. There's a misconception that faith is about waiting for signs, for breakthroughs, for God to act. But faith was never about waiting in idleness. It's about movement, even when you can't see the outcome. It's walking toward the unknown, trusting that each step will be guided. When God calls you, He doesn't hand you a map. He gives you a direction and asks you to move. Too many people mistake hesitation for wisdom, fear for caution. They pray for transformation, but never take the first step toward it. They ask for strength, but avoid the challenges that would make them strong. Real faith is not comfortable. It's demanding. It requires risk. Action, on the other hand, without faith is blind. It burns energy without purpose. That's why the two must meet. Faith gives action meaning, and action gives faith substance. When the two unite, transformation becomes inevitable. You start to see the world respond differently because you're no longer divided between belief and behavior. Your words and your walk start speaking the same language. That's when power begins to move through you. Quietly, steadily, unmistakably. You may have prayed for signs or clarity, wondering when it will be time to act. But the truth is, clarity rarely precedes obedience, it follows it. The moment you take one faithful step, the next one becomes visible. God doesn't reveal the whole path because He's not testing your knowledge. He's testing being chosen. Isn't about superiority or status. It's about responsibility and service. When God chooses you, He's not placing you above others. He's calling you to stand among them with purpose. It's a sacred assignment, not a personal reward. To be chosen is to be awakened to the truth that your life is not just about you. It's about what can flow through you to others. This understanding is what separates the arrogant from the anointed. The arrogant believe they've earned their position. The anointed know they've been entrusted with it. When God calls, it's not for comfort, it's for contribution. The path of the chosen isn't easy. It's costly. You'll be asked to stand when others sit, to believe when others doubt, and to persevere when others quit. You'll carry burdens that others don't see because your strength is meant to sustain more than just yourself. That's what divine favor really is. It's not a shortcut, it's a summons. It's God saying, I'm giving you something to carry, because I know you won't drop it. You are chosen because your spirit can endure what your ego cannot. And yet, being chosen also means walking in humility. It means knowing that every ounce of influence, every opportunity, every gift you hold was given to serve a greater purpose. The chosen don't chase applause, they chase alignment. They understand that true fulfillment doesn't come from being recognized, but from being obedient. Before 24th of October, that's the challenge before you, to step fully into the role you've been called to play. Not tomorrow, not when life feels easier, but now. Because purpose delayed is purpose denied. Stepping into the chosen path means shifting from self-centered ambition to divine mission. It means using your pain as a message, your lessons as light, your voice as a bridge for those who feel unseen. It's understanding that your story, both the triumphs and the tragedies, can become someone else's roadmap to hope. You are not chosen to escape suffering. You are chosen to transform it into wisdom. Every challenge you faced was not meant to break you, but to build credibility in your message. The world doesn't need perfection, it needs authenticity. And that's what you carry when you say yes to your calling. But saying yes isn't just about emotion, it's about action. To walk as someone chosen means to live with intention. To rise early when you'd rather sleep. To discipline your mind when it drifts toward despair. To forgive when bitterness feels easier. To speak truth even when it costs you comfort. That's the price of being chosen. You must become an example of what obedience looks like in a distracted, indifferent world. And that's not an easy path, but it's a meaningful one. There's urgency in this moment because calling doesn't wait forever. The longer you hesitate, the more the noise of the world will convince you that your role doesn't matter. But deep down, you already know it does. That's why this message resonates. It's awakening something that was already there. You've always known you were meant for more, not in a prideful sense, but in a purposeful one. Before 24th of October, you are being asked to decide who you will be from this point forward, a spectator of your life or a participant in God's plan. To step into your chosen path is to declare, I will no longer run from what I'm meant to carry. It's choosing meaning over comfort, service over status, obedience over fear. And when you do, life begins to align in ways you couldn't predict. Doors open, strength returns, clarity sharpens. Because when you step into your purpose, heaven moves with you. You become a vessel through which light enters dark places. So understand this. Being chosen is not about being celebrated. It's about being available. It's the willingness to let your life become a living example of faith in action. That's what this message is calling you toward before 24 October, to stop doubting, stop delaying, and start walking. Because the world needs what you've been entrusted with. And now is the time to carry it.